Hello, everyone. Welcome to Film Roundtable. I'm Erin. I'm one of the co-founders. Today is March 30th, 2021. I'm happy to have a really great talk today. Before we get started and before I introduce everyone, I just want to take our moment of silence to honor all of the 2,808,602 worldwide COVID deaths. And in the US alone, we're at 563,304 deaths. And we also want to take a moment to honor all of our Black and Brown brothers and sisters and all of our First Nations brothers and sisters who have died by the hands of police brutality and other senseless acts of violence. So let's please just take a moment. Thank you so much. So today we have a really wonderful talk with these three beautiful ladies. We have Wendy Levy, the Executive Director of the Alliance for Media, Arts and Culture, and the co-founder of Arts to Work, which is a new award-winning creative workforce initiative that centers around racial and gender justice and a new model of apprenticeship for digital media careers. And then we have Kimberlin Bolton, who is the Executive Director of Reimagine ATL, based in Atlanta. And then our moderator today is Kisha Imani Cameron, who is a film and TV producer and a film coach. She founded Africa First, which is a program for emerging filmmakers. And she was also the former CEO of Ghetto Film Schools. So I want to welcome everybody today, and we're going to let Kisha take it from here. So hope everyone enjoys.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you so much. And just to clarify, I was a former COO of Ghetto Film School, but thank you for that. And I'm super excited to have this conversation with you guys today. Like I said, for me, the issue of reframing the workforce and diversifying the pipeline into, film, television, media, digital is just been a lifelong passion of mine. And you guys are actually, on the ground doing the work. So I want to make sure we sort of get into the, the details of what you guys are doing and how you're doing it. And just sort of how transformational it is. But I kind of want to, almost start like zooming out a little bit, because I think it's important for people to understand almost sort of the scope of the challenge, right, that you guys are facing in terms of doing this work. So it'd be great to just unpack, and either one of you can do it from your own perspective, but I'd love for you to give people a sense of what the real challenges are for young creatives of color to effectively enter, the film and television industry. Like, what are the boundaries from a skill set standpoint? What are the boundaries from a cultural and sort of financial standpoint? Like, what's the challenge that you guys are creating the scaffolding to mitigate, to reduce the barriers to entries, but just what does it look like from your perspective? Like, what's the game?
Kimberlin, you got to go for this first.
I was going to say, you got it.
I'll go out from this is your, this.
Yeah, the thing that we're hearing a lot as we're connecting with employers and preparing our students for the careers that exist, the one thing that we're hearing is actually really frustrating. They're like, employers and executives are saying, we want to hire, more filmmakers of color. We want to hire more Black creatives, but we don't know where to find them, or we don't know where the skill set is. And it's frustrating because we're like, we're here. we have them. So you have two issues at hand. You have the executives, you have the employers saying, we want to do this, but we don't know where they are. We can't find any, which, you know, is kind of a lazy statement to make.
We looked everywhere.
Right.
We looked, I mean, we called our cousin.
Right.
And
I called my friend.
I went to Harvard. And I mean, where else do you want me to go? What else do you want me to do?
So you understand. So we have one problem right here on the top, on the executive employer level. But then we have another problem, particularly in the city of Atlanta, which is the centerpiece, the mecca, the landmark of all things creative, music, film, television, the creative industry in general. We have a huge legacy in that. But we have all of these young, talented creatives, particularly Blacks, young creatives who want to get into the industry, who want to do all this stuff, but they have no idea how to do it. Kisha, imagine you living in a neighborhood and people are filming their crime scenes, their robbery scenes in your neighborhood, and you don't even know how to break into that industry.
Absolutely.
And so we have this divide between the people who, you know, quote unquote, want to find the talent, but can't. And then the talent which we have access to, who are like, I don't even know where to start. And so one thing that we've been doing at Reimagine since 2014 is building that bridge by providing career exposure, training, and placement so that we can bring a connection between the employers and the industry at large says, we want to do this, but we can't. And the young people that are saying, how do we do it? And so what we're doing is we're going to these employers with the help of the Alliance and saying, we got your talent. Now what's your excuse? The talent is trained. What's your excuse now? And so those are the major issues that we're having right now.
Yeah, no, thank you for unpacking it, because you highlighted, like I said, there's a version of it from the perspective of the creators, and then there's sort of this industry purgatory that still exists. Where it's like, where do we go? What do we do? We have looked, we've done all the things, and it's like, you've done one thing.
So what we want at Reimagine is position ourselves as and one of my board members actually made a great analogy, like Reimagine's like the D League, right? So we are acting as that recruiter, just like, you know, NFL does or the NBA does. Like we're saying, this is the next high school recruit. This is the next college recruit. Come look at this talent, and presenting a showcase for them.
And
absolutely.
You know, the systemic problem, though, that Kimberlin really put her finger on is that you can be this amazing D League and really be just completely like incubating and rising up these voices. But the reality is that the media industry is based forever on a culture of unpaid internship. Like that's just how we do it. And in other fields, you start as a paid apprentice. You get, you know, you have your apprenticeship, you have your high school diploma, you have your apprenticeship, and then you have a union gig that you can count on and rely on for the rest of your life. The way into the media industry is so kind of complicated unnecessarily, but also exclusive. And to be able to be the exception to the rule is, you have to know somebody, you have to have, you know, it just is the way it has to be. So we have to circumvent, you know, try to create these opportunities that where some of the major companies are like, I'm not sure we can afford to do that. And the response is, I'm not sure you can afford not to do it.
Not to do it.
You know, it's like not doing it is hella worse, because everyone's saying now that they want a more diverse pipeline. They want to be part of the solution, and they really have no idea how to create a diverse workforce when the Reimagine ATLs are there for them, but the risk feels too great. So we have to really mitigate that risk with the stories and the people and like make the case. And that's what I think together, Kimberlin and I are trying to do.
Absolutely.
Right. So, I mean, so tell me about, because I want to get into the work side, but it's actually interesting to also, you know, unpack once you've done the work, you've got the people. Because we always, listen, we already know the talent is not the issue. Like talent is there. People are making extraordinary things and capable of doing great things. But what is the approach to sort of shift the perspective of the companies? Like, what have been the leverage, but what have you found have been the best practices in terms of turning around some of these, you know, it's so hard mentalities with these larger companies to make it easier to do it than to not do it? Like, what have you found have been some of the most effective measures in that way?
Nothing's been quite effective yet. But we're getting there. We're getting in the door. My win over the last year is that instead of having our staff having to like cold call and cold email and beg their friends and cousins to get in the door, I'm taking calls now from major industry studios. They're calling us now because of, you know, we won some award and we're starting to have some traction. And what we have to offer, that the thing that I find triggers the conversation first is they all love what we're doing. You know, the fact that we are actually having an explicit pipeline that centers the work and the lives and the stories of, you know, Black and brown and female creatives, and that we're working above the line is also something really interesting that hasn't really happened before in this way. But what we've done by establishing a registered apprenticeship program, Arts to Work is the very first federally registered national apprenticeship program that the employers who agree to hire in this way from our pipelines are now eligible for millions of dollars in federal grants that are earmarked for workforce development and registered apprenticeship that have never before gone to the arts or media. So that's been a like, what? Tell me about that. You know, if the federal government is investing $10 million to train Boeing engineers, why not, you know, to train, you know, editors at wherever XYZ company or associate producers at this company, because we need to invest in the creative economy in order for it to keep doing the work it's doing. And so those have been those trigger points, and the fact that we also provide, people don't know what to do with interns. You know, they're coming in, they're like, let's put them somewhere and get rid of them. So we have this meaningful arc of earn and learn. And we provide support to them every step of the way, additional training, outside mentors. You know, we try to make it their investment easier. And realize that there's now the thing also, the last thing that I wanted to mention in the industry, it's like in workforce development, they're looking for full-time jobs with advancement and benefits and the whole thing. In the media industry, that is often a deal breaker. Because, you know, when a show's over, you're out of a job. And even though that might really be, that's something that if you're, you know, coming out of poverty and you're trying to support a family, that reality is scary. But we say, look, Arts to Work is now the alumni organization for these folks that you're hiring. They can always come back to us to help find placement. But we know if they're really good, they're going to find another gig. But that's
another job.
You know, but it's another.
It's an ongoing process.
Yeah, but we're going to, you know,
get
through this.
One thing that we've seen on the local level here in Atlanta, and just to take a step back to talk about the relationship between Reimagine ATL and the Alliance, through the partnership with the Alliance for Media, Arts and Culture, Reimagine ATL has been able to curate an Emerge apprenticeship program. It's called Emerge. And so it's a 9-month program where students will get certified in media production and post-production thanks to Arts to Work. They will also get soft skills training that are industry certified, and they will get financial literacy skills, and they will get paid. They're getting paid actually to go through this program now. So they'll get paid. They're getting paid for the first 4 months of the program. And then after that, they're also getting opportunities for work for hire. So some of our students last week, they worked on a Nike campaign, or they're working with one of the top marketing agencies here, Dagger. A few of our other apprentices will be hired on a local production here through Lionsgate. And so one of the things that we've seen, to Wendy's point, is like, we're not able to do full-time employment here in this industry. But the other incredible discovery that we made is we, like Wendy is saying, we prepare our students for above the line jobs. We want to we want to develop the decision makers, because right now we have Tyler Perry and Will Packer here. Like, we don't want to just be a location city. We want to be a development city. And so what we've learned by talking to the industry and the employers is that the creative space, the creators that exist in Atlanta are in marketing and ad agency work. And that is amazing, because yes, we're developing filmmakers, but with the Emerge program, we realize like we can create even more powerful creators if we're having them infiltrate the marketing and ad agency. So we're working through that and just connecting with a lot of the ad agencies. And we've connected actually with an organization called, the A Pledge. And it's a conglomerate of marketing and creative agencies here in Atlanta that are committing to making sure that their companies reflect the actual demographic of the city of Atlanta. And so it's like, it's systemic in one point and on one level, but it's also like this very individual practical thing, and doing it one at a time so that we can get our feet in the door. And so with Wendy's help, we're also able to say, hey, like, not only will we create the talent and provide the talent for you, but we can also come in and, with the help of the Alliance, offer D&I training so that your employers know how to welcome in this influx of diverse and inclusive talent. And so it's both and that's why what Wendy was talking about, the macro and the micro are so important when you talk about systemic change and creating new infrastructures.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to, you touched on it, but I'd love to sort of talk about what the arc is for someone coming in to reimagine ATL. Like, what are all the almost possible through lines for them? I know you have the Emerge program. I know there's no comment, like there's, and then how they would then interact with, Wendy's organization. Like, give us a little taste of like the arc of a student coming in and what all the different experiences they could have and jobs they could potentially work on post being in your program.
Absolutely. So Reimagine is essentially an education and workforce development organization geared specifically for the creative industry. And so we work directly with Gen Z creatives ages 11 all the way up until 24. And the reason why we did that is because we want to tackle workforce development from a responsible, holistic standpoint. So that means planting the seed, but also following the pathways through. So we start with age 11. And what that looks like is really like our media production workshops and also our career exposure workshops. So with our career exposure workshops, we're working directly with the schools. Right now we're virtual, of course, and we're partnering with the Alliance to really just introduce students and teachers to all of the careers that exist. People still don't know that this is a $37 billion industry in Georgia right now. And so they don't know like all of the careers that exist in the field. And we want to open them up. Like, if you can do math, you can be a production accountant, like these are the careers that exist. So we go and work with middle school and high school classrooms and do these presentations where students get to ask questions. We also offer hands-on media production workshops, which are a little longer. They could be anywhere from 2 to 3 hours, where students learn specific courses. They could do Foley, animation. They can do audio engineering. The teachers will let us know what they'd like us to produce in those workshops. So that's for middle school and high school. And it just plants the seed, right? So then under our other umbrella, we have our training umbrella, which is our No Comment Film Fellowship program. And that's our flagship program. It's powered by Warner Media. And that is a year-long program for students who know they want to be filmmakers. So the first 6 months is documentary filmmaking, and each of those fellows will produce their own documentary at the end. And now they've moved into narrative filmmaking. So they've broken into 2 teams, and we'll have 2 narrative short films completed by June. And we're going to do a drive-in screening in June for that as well.
Yay. Congrats.
And then under our, I guess I didn't mention, we have exposure, training, and placement initiatives. So under our placement initiative is Emerge. And thanks to Wendy and the Alliance, we've been able to really sink our teeth into into this placement umbrella. We've been trying to do job placement for so long, but we haven't ever had the capacity until now. And so we've partnered with the Alliance for Media, Arts, and Culture and a lot of partners here in Atlanta to curate the Emerge program that provides young people ages 18 through 24 with an opportunity to get paid to go through training, like I said, and then at the end, they'll be matched one-on-one with an employer, whether that's a paid internship or long-term employment, depending on what the opportunities are available. So.
And
Awesome.
You know what Kimberlin's really done here, and that is remarkable and also replicable, which is great because we have all these other training centers that want to be like what is happening there. The idea that folks are hired, it's not like paying them to go to school, right? What it is creating, really making this a job, making this so that when you show up, you're not like leaning back on your phone during class. You have to show up like you're showing up for your employer. This is a new role for the community-based media center as a creative employer. And because without that job, you're not having access to do Nike work and Warner Media work and you know, all of this other creative work. And how you show up fully into that experience, whether it's online or in person or some kind of hybrid, it's no longer school. It is your first job. And everything that happens in there is in a way more professionalized environment. So it does also, I think, help folks come out of there with certification, like she was saying, with portfolios, which the employers say is more important than any degree you could have. It's like, what's your work? What's your voice? What are you bringing there? So it really is changing up the whole ecosystem and the whole environment in which folks are emerging. So it's really brilliant.
And one thing I forgot to mention about under the placement umbrella is we last year or 2 years ago, we decided like we weren't going to wait on employers to hire our students. So we launched a production company called Reimagine Productions. And so that is another way that our apprentices get hired. So in addition to, you know, being able to work on the Nike campaigns or any of the jobs that come in while they're in the apprenticeship program, Reimagine also takes on client work. And so we pull from the apprentices in addition to the freelance network that we have. And so we're constantly making sure that those students can get paid beyond the base stipend that they receive.
That's awesome. And Wendy, I'd love for you to like unpack, because I know Reimagine's one of the organizations you work with. Tell us a little bit about that sort of macro umbrella, like who are some of the other people that you partner with, like, and where you want to, what are some of your goals as you look over the horizon for what it is you want to, the takeover.
Take over.
What it is you want to do.
It's so weird to want to take over an industry that we're not really, that we're only kind of fringe in it, but it's like, watch out, disruption is coming. And I mean, the nice thing is we have a lot of friends in high places, but also a lot of friends on the ground in community. And that's the beauty of the Alliance for Media, Arts, and Culture, which has thousands of members in 25 states and 7 countries who are doing this work. And our members range from, you know, from Reimagine and other community-based training centers with big visions, all the way to, you know, Sundance and the Kennedy Center as, you know, our partners, so that and everything in between, there's a relationships that we're building between independent artists and production companies and studios, but also across sectors. So the idea that is, we're not just training folks for jobs in Hollywood, you know, like on a television program or something like that. But as Kimberlin started to say about the focus, because it's in Atlanta locally on advertising and marketing and some of those really exciting jobs. In some places like in DC, there are so many arts and culture institutions like the Smithsonian who we're working with right now that have needs for storytellers embedded in those institutions. And how many museums can you walk into now where you can hold your phone up to a work of art and it comes to life and you get a story? Someone's making those stories. Who's making those stories? right?
Right.
And so, but that's true for hospital systems, healthcare, sports, journalism. I mean, we're all digital media companies now. So if we want to be playing in a social space and connecting with audiences, communities, and customers, you're going to hire storytellers to help elevate what you're doing, right? So that's what the Alliance is kind of about here. And it's being able to create the kind of community where during COVID, we could have an apprentice in Philadelphia get on the phone with a showrunner in LA that they never would have been able to connect with an executive director of a major company who's like, I'm going to take time to listen to this and to, and we're going to create these relationships that might not have ever been able to happen before. And also then build from there into programs that can actually deepen and expand access for those folks who might not be college bound. Because it's weird. No one who we have spoken to who has a successful career in the industry says that college is a necessary thing. I mean, it's wonderful to have, and we're not trying to keep young people from going to college. It's like, yes, get an education. But if you're not necessarily up for that, and you're talented and you've got drive and ambition, you can succeed here, and there's going to be a pathway for you. So we're trying to build an ecosystem that includes not just that is workforce development, yes, on one side, but we also have a whole network of creative programs where we're developing access to new technologies. We're partnered with Epic Games, developing all of these new technologies around virtual museums and screenings. We've got leadership programs so that young leaders coming up can get, can have executive coaching. Let's talk about that later. And we've, so there's so moving parts to this because we're building artists up. And that's what makes our workforce programs different than so many others. They're not just bodies and seats in front of screens. You can do that for certain digital careers, and that works for some folks. But for us, as we're training up a whole generation of storytellers, we're looking at developing and creating the conditions where culture change is happening, and where the change that we all want to see is real. So it's complicated and it's long term, but thankfully with the new stimulus packages, there is money for creative workforce development in there the way it's never been before, explicit. And it's like, if you want to change the world, give money to artists. It's like, come on, we know that that's true. And we need a framework where it can happen. So we're really looking forward to sharing out all those resources, because the Alliance is about building the capacity of Reimagine and all the community-based media centers who have lived in a culture of scarcity forever. And it's time for that to be over. And Reimagine ATL is the shining example of what's possible when you have that vision and you get some of that investment. And so we're so grateful to foundations like Arthur Blank Foundation and MacArthur Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundation who have invested in these programs. And now it's our turn to look towards the government. I mean, no one wants to run federal grants their whole life, but this money belongs in the hands of artists on the ground in communities. And that's how we're going to build back from COVID. So we're thinking broadly, and thanks to our members, it's like we have a shot.
Kimberlin, you wanted to jump in?
I was going to say one of the many ways that Wendy and I are aligned is that we both have this passion to break the stigma of what it means to be a creator or an artist, right? I think we both have experience where, like, growing up, being an artist or being creative was a dirty word, right? It was equated with being a starving artist. Like, we both have a passion beyond breaking the systemic barriers and structures. We have a personal dog in the fight when it comes to changing the mental model around what it means to being a creator or an artist, and replacing that with a sense of integrity, a sense of empowerment, saying, no, we need a seat at the table, just like you give to these engineers, just like you give to these plumbers and these construction workers. We need to be at the table. We are just as important. And so I think what I love about Wendy's work, at large is that she's, like she said, she's going into these cities, but also going into the prominent industries in the cities and saying, okay, DC, you have the art institutions. All right, this city is a healthcare city. So what are the storytelling needs there? And really going and proving that art storytelling, the digital media industry is needed everywhere. And I think for so long, you know, people who work in marketing and who work in advertisement or creative industry in general are always fighting for, you know, their right to be there when it comes to corporate work, you know? And so really what Wendy's doing is powerful on a national level in really changing the mentality of what it looks like to be an artist. Like, oh, that's good for you. You should do this for free. No, why?
No.
Because it's a part of me. You know, and so like that's my passion, and that's why we're with Reimagine in particular, we're developing well-rounded whole artists so that, you know, yes, you can be creative, but can you send an invoice? Are you mentally healthy? Do you know how to communicate? And I love that Wendy is doing that on a high level as well.
Well, I love, listen, two things that I love. One, in terms of your work, Kimberlin, that you're going in so early and just getting people acclimated to the idea that this is a possibility. Because, you know, I discovered filmmaking at like 13 and 14 through a program, you know, through the Future Filmmakers Workshop at NYU. Didn't know this was a thing, was like hanging out in the TV studio of my high school at Armuro. I think my English teacher trying to get rid of me probably was like, go to this little program, get out of here. And then I was like, oh, like somebody put a camera in my hand and I was like, oh, it's a wrap, you know? And that was what gave me, you know, the courage to apply to NYU and, you know, go to film school and all that. I would wanted to be a computer scientist before that. Like I would have never considered, you know, media a possibility until I actually did the work and got the, you know, sort of internal courage to do it. So just that, you know, just that, the seed, as you call it, like the seed of the idea. And I do think as well, the way the sort of digital landscape has changed, like digital in general, like how that's grown as a marketplace, even like beyond, say, traditional film and television media, like how all these industries need storytellers, you know, like to, you know, marketing has definitely been embracing it now where they've turned more sort of filmmaking because the 60-second commercial isn't exactly what it used to be. And people need, you know, more creative ways to integrate their products into storytelling, you know, and how that works and what that looks like is definitely evolving and changing. And there are definitely not enough creatives of color in that space who are helping to sort of reimagine those things. But there's a big weakness because I find like we're huge consumers of some of these brands, and they're not always necessarily speaking to us in a way that's sort of deliberate through creatives and things like that. So anyway, I'll get off the soapbox for that, but I just wanted to highlight that because
they're not hiring us to do it.
That part. So yes, come through Nike. You know.
Yep, that's right.
I'm from Brooklyn. Come through Nike. A few, you know, the other ones can come through too. Because we will stand a brand. We will.
And if we don't keep pushing this, Hollywood and everyone else is going to revert back to the way it was.
Oh, easy.
You know, easy. Because how many executives I've talked to so many folks who are like have gone advanced in their work lives, you know, young Black executives in many different fields. And at some point, they're just passed over. Like at some point that we're not creating the conditions at all where advancement is, where there's equality there. And you can let people in one door, you know, and then you think you've done it. And then you just go back to the way things were. And it's like, we just can't let up. And, you know, it's like,
listen, listen, to the point on the sort of decision executive side, I'd love to unpack this a little bit because listen, I was fortunate enough after NYU, I became a studio executive. I worked at New Line Cinema for years and Walden Media. And I love that experience. But I came up in the 90s, and this was like, I was the only, many ways, right? The youngest and the only for a long time. And I was doing it at a time where, it was just very difficult, to your point of like advancement of, people sort of wonder why my resume is so evolved and and diverse. I'm like, because it had to be like way too voted. I couldn't, like, these just, you didn't naturally come up. I watched other people leapfrog over me, and God bless them. Like, that's great. But you were not picked. I mean, you didn't get the bat phone call, back in the day. That was not a thing where they're like, come into the room now and get your stuff. Like, you just sat there, fighting for projects that didn't get made, or, being pigeonholed, or, you would get it from both sides. Either you were too Black or not Black enough, or this or that. It was a lot. I've been happy to see an environment now, that's a bit more evolved for young executives of color, but this is still a huge gap. In terms of barriers to entry. So,
Kisha, what do you
say
think?
It again?
What else can people, like, I feel like you've done so much to face that, like your work, just like Ghetto Film School has done so much. I mean, creating the roster, Ava doing, array crew. I mean, there's things that are popping up, but that's not going to, I'm not sure
it's not going to change that side of it.
Is there something you can do to address your experience?
Right. Well, I mean, there is a program now around developing executives, specifically executives of color. But whatever, if anybody's listening, like, this is a big thing for me, and whatever I can do to help anybody who's doing things or to create a new thing, because there needs to, in the same way there are programs, residencies for, like, writers trying to get into television or direct, there needs to be more a programmatic way, I think, for people who decide that development is their passion. I got very lucky. I got a scholarship in college that to Universal, and I met my mentor there, amazing woman Elizabeth Hunter, who's now a writer, film and TV writer. And she, I read all her scripts. I went to all her meetings. I mean, she showed me the ropes. I also had an internship in development at 40 Acres at Spike Lee's company. So I came college with some, I knew how to write coverage. I knew what, I had some sense of what the world of development was, but that wasn't, it was so lightning in a bottle that I'm shocked when I look back at it, that I was able to do that. There's no infrastructure. And I definitely think there are people who love film, maybe lean more towards producing, who kind of can see the, or you can see the game, who just don't, because that's another place where the unpaid internship, I mean, barriers to entry, like, that's where you get into the culture side. The development side, I think, is still the holders of culture, and it's very class-based. You know what I mean? Like, this is, I mean, it's, people who have been able to have certain kinds of backgrounds and certain kinds of experiences, have certain levels of contacts, and can just kind of get in on a ground floor level, and get the hookup. I mean, it's still very much culturally, like, clubby, to this day. It's gotten, like I said, a little bit better, but not much in the 25 years that I've seen it. So there needs to just be a foot in that door, holding it open. And because what you need to know to even start is hard. Like, you have to know, that's not a job you can hit and not know anything about it. You need to understand what development is before, even as an assistant, I wound up having 2 years of experience in development. To be an assistant, to answer the phone. Where are you going to get that? Where are you going to get that?
Exactly.
So no, it's still a big issue. And like you said, even once you get in, being in environments that are going to support you, because then it's also dealing with agents, dealing with the industry. It's all about how you advance is who who can you get on the phone, whose scripts are you getting. It's a particularly rough game. So you not need to just train them in the skill set. You almost need to also give people exposure to people in the industry that they can get on the phone. So when you're being hired, it's like, oh, I know I can get such and such on the phone. It's such, and that's the part that's really hard.
It's so hard. It's a culture shift. There's so much people don't want. They're like, they don't have time. I can't deal. No, no. And to get to yes, it's going to be changing the status quo so that you're shamed if you don't have an apprentice by your side, that you're giving back to, that you're, we're actually living the world we want to see. Because if not, it just will never do it. But
and I had people that trained me. I mean, I literally had people that had me at their side. I mean, Elizabeth took me to her lunches.
Yeah, see, that doesn't
I mean,
happen that much.
It doesn't, because she knew what she was doing. She was like, I need you to know everyone I know. And you need someone to leverage their contacts and let you in on it and let you build relationships on your, because that's the currency that you have as an executive. It's not just like, oh, I know how to read scripts and give good notes. It's your relationships is your currency as an executive. And it's very hard for people not in the pipeline and in the game to come in with the same level of context as someone who may not be in the film industry, but grew up around and, whatever, everyone was at your backyard barbecue because of who your uncle or your cousin or your mama was. And you just know everybody. That's how a lot of people get in the game. They just know everybody in the game. But if you don't have that sort of, you haven't grown up like that.
People are protective of their worlds. You can imagine. Opening it up to everyone, it's like, wait, here comes everybody. We don't want that. We want to be in our exclusive club. And I totally get it. And it doesn't need to be the end of that. It's just like opening up opportunities for folks traditionally excluded is what we need to do to heal the world. So just get off your protective thing. Let's all do this, and this is music to my ears, hearing your story now. And I think, we can have this conversation and then it can go completely exponential.
Yeah, but listen, you never get it right. You never get it done. There's so much work to do on all the avenues, but the executive lane is one I'm still particularly passionate about, because I know how it changed my life and how more people need access to it, and the companies are better for it.
Right. At the very least, people should just give money to the organization doing the work. Like for me, it's like, you want to know how to solve this problem, you give $10,000 to Reimagine ATL. Or the Reimagine ATL in your neighborhood. Give $100,000. It's like invest in the work so that the work can change and there's less of a burden lift on each one of us personally. But there's the money is out there to seed these programs that can catalyze this change. It's there.
100%. And how do people support your organization, Kimberlin? Like, what if anyone's listening to this and they want to support you? How do they do that? Where do they go?
Yeah, absolutely. You can visit reimagineatl.com/donate to help support either our No Comment Film Fellowship students as they're going into production. We still have needs like purchasing equipment and meals for production. We want to make sure that especially with the Film Fellowship, that they are creating on state-of-the-art equipment as well as their phones, so they don't have all these barriers to access. So equipment purchases, donations, and then also with our Emerge apprentices as well. We could always use your help there. So thank you.
Awesome. Got it. And then how can, and beyond the sort of donate side, like how can anyone listening to this like help of like, what kind of support other than maybe do you elicit from the community? Like, how can people help?
Oh, absolutely. I'm always thinking money, right?
No, I mean, listen, coins. Be clear, no shame. We need coins. Not all nonprofits doing this work can always use exponentially more money, and because we know you'll use it well. But just to speak more broadly about support, that could be possible for people.
Yeah, absolutely. To your point, I just wanted to say quickly, we are seeing a lot more people of color, particularly Black creatives, getting these like overall deals, right? And like these amazing opportunities. And so it looks like, wow, yeah, we're winning, things are happening, but it's still 94 to 97% white male in the C-suites, right? In the executive. And I really am concerned that we are going to lose sight of that as we see more and more wins happen. And like, I don't want this Trojan horse to come in and be like, oh yeah, people are getting these deals, so we're good. No, because they're still holding the purse strings, right? And writing the checks. And so I think, like, to your point, having more, the writing fellowships are happening, but having more fellowships on the executive level is like, that's where my mind is. That's what I'm looking towards. And then part of our training educational method is introducing the importance of social capital, because that's how I've gotten where I've gotten, is like having social capital. And so we do that through making sure each of our students have a one-on-one mentor. So with the film fellowship, it's powered by Warner Media. So each of those have a Warner Media mentor. Same thing with Emerge, more of a creative industry mentor, one-on-one mentors that's kind of leading them and connecting them to the next thing. So our students leave our programs having some type of connection and some type of network into the industry. That social capital thing is huge. And that's what we've been pushing. So how can you support? We are constantly looking to connect with people in the creative industry, whether they want to have speaking opportunities. As we're going into the schools, we love to bring a professional with us to just give an example and talk 15 minutes about their career. It's really inspiring, especially when it's a person of color who can come in, or a woman, and say, hey, this is my career. Another way is we're always looking for mentors with our new cohorts that are coming. We're going to want mentors who are looking to just give time, an hour or two once a month, and just spend time giving feedback with their students. So those are the two ways that people can help. One more way, employers, and Wendy, this could go with Wendy as well. We want to build our employer network, both locally and Wendy nationally. We have been developing a bank locally so that we know, like, okay, employer, you said you're looking for somebody. All right, we'll tag you down. So when we find somebody that's a good match, we can refer over. So just building our employer network, building up our mentorship network, and then our guest speakers for our workshops as well.
That's right. And for folks outside of Atlanta, they can get with the Alliance. Arts2work.media is the Arts2Work website, and you can sign up as a mentor. We have programs that are intensive month-long mentorships. We pay our mentors to really invest some serious time. But the idea of speakers that Kimberlin was talking about, we do a national Arts2Work conversation series. And if you are an employer that can't hire right now, we understand it's COVID, things are hard. Maybe you can provide a project-based experience that is part of one of our programs. Just be a supervisor, be an advisor for one project where we're paying the apprentice, but you're going to come in and provide that on-the-job experience that is project-based. So we can work with you, whether you're in Atlanta and working directly with Reimagine, or in any city across this country. We're even working internationally. So just sign up, step forward, and we will put you to work in some really beautiful ways.
I love that there are multiple ways that people can get involved. I will volunteer myself for whatever you guys
I'm coming
need.
For you, Kisha.
Come for me. I'm right here. Thank you guys so much for obviously the work that you're doing on the ground. Like I know from experience working with young creatives, like it's a lot of just actual work to do the work, do the training, field all the phone calls, make the connections, actually get butts in seats, and get people jobs and get them paid, and just believing that they belong, right, in this industry, and that they could actually have a full career, and then they can take over from there. It's a lot of moving parts and a lot of moving pieces and a lot of coordination with a lot of stakeholders. So I thank you both for the many ways that you have done the work and continue to do the work, because we all benefit from it, by having more diverse storytellers. And you know, so to the extent that we can build out some new avenues, we'll all come back around the executive table and figure that piece out, because that still needs a lot of work. But yeah, just really want to thank you for the work that you're doing, and the ways that you're doing it, and appreciate Erin, you giving this sort of platform for the discussion. So thank you so
Yeah.
much.
And I would love to have you guys all back, you know, even individually, and talking about just other branches of, you know, your micro work that you're doing in this area. I think that would be really great, because we're wanting to do these continuing talks about how to build up, you know, the community, and how people can actually scaffold and support these programs by themselves, like Hollywood Pipeline, who's trying to do something on their own, you know, or more on a more macro level. So that would be really great. We'd love to have you guys back, you know, in the future. It was really just such an inspiring call, and I'm sure our listeners are going to love it. And so we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
See you guys all soon.
All right, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you
You
so
too.
much.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Bye.
Bye.